Okay, good morning, good day, everybody. Thanks for coming. I did my master in Sweden 12 years ago and then left the country and never had a chance to visit again. So it's very nice to be back in Sweden 12 years after. Thanks for having me. Now, I was introduced better than I could, so let's talk about the main question. So the main question is, who will be our guide on a path to trustful and fair AI? And I like to start my talks with spoiler alert. The guide will be us, humans. So if that's the main take and you don't need further explanations, go around, mingle. There's a lot of business context you can make. But I'll give you a bit more details on why and how this will happen, okay? So judging by how I look, you could figure that this talk won't be about fashion advice. So what is it? What is that you see on the screen? Any ideas? This will be an interactive talk, I'm sorry. Yes. So any guesses? Close, yeah, thank you. Okay, you helped me out. That is close indeed. And this is an example of search query labeling interface that crowdsourcers use to train search models. Right, for example, in e-com, you need to have relevant search. This is a very simple book example, you know. iPhone case, you basically have to tell if the description fits the image. And now you'll tell me, whoa, stop. We are here in the age of machine learning and computer vision. We know what is image captioning. This all could be done automatically, right? Why do we need humans for that? That's not viable. Well, I've been working on search for quite a while before. Like at the start of my career, I was data analyst. And as a part of data analytics, you go through actual human search queries that are anonymized, but you see what human asked. And I have my favorite search query that I remember to this day. And the query goes like this. What can I give my mom for Mother's Day? Not expensive. I am a child, please. OK? That's an actual search query. Now, labeling a product offer to this search query is something that AI still cannot do to this day, right? And that's basically the essence of how humans are way more tricky than we tend to think about us. My favorite examples is with voice interfaces, right? So if you shout something to your wife in the other room, or if she shouts something back at you, and you mishear, she gets very annoyed, at least mine does, because we are used to the fact that voice interface should work from one go. You tell something to the person understands, right? So we have the same criteria for voice interfaces when we interact with them without thinking that it's a very difficult process. Because what's happening is that electric signals go through my brain, then make my muscles move, then I make a sound, then the sound goes in the microphone, is transferred back into electric signal, sent to this amplifier devices, then the electric signal is transferred back into acoustic waves, which hit your ear, which then make your brain tingle, and then you're like, oh, I understand you. That's literally what's happening right now. This is so impossible to work. And we're used to it. We are humans, right? And that's the point of the whole problem that people start to face whenever they actually implement any ML pipeline. So have you implemented ML pipeline in some user-related, human-related business case? Raise your hand if you did. OK. So once you think you will do it, the world looks like this. You do data collection, you train your model, you deploy it, profit. Everything's fine. I'll automate this. Once you actually implement it and you start looking at how it works, you see that there are some examples that model is not exactly sure where to put, like this search query that I gave you. There are new data coming in. Something happens, lockdown happens, and people start to do very different things and buy different things online that they never bought before. And the whole activity pattern changes, and your model is obsolete. And also, people start to game your model one way or another, and we'll talk a little bit about it later. And all these things could not be done with your model because your model is trained on the data collected before you deployed it, right? So if you played with ChatGPT, you know that ChatGPT knows a lot about the world before 2017 or something. And then it doesn't because the data set that was originally trained on is basically gathered at this year. And updating this whole training is millions of dollars. So you need to, in fact, establish some sort of a feedback loop, bringing human perspective at the tricky cases, at the new data, at the monitoring, and then closing the loop on your product so the product doesn't get obsolete as it develops. And that's where this loop is missing in a lot of ML pipelines at the start. And this is a huge surprise for businesses whenever they actually start using the thing that they implemented. Because I've talked yesterday with a lot of people who do data here, and most of them don't do quality control monitoring, for example, once they deploy it, other than automatically. And that's a very tricky thing when you deal with humans. With humans, you need to have a little bit of human oversight, unless you want, well, if you don't want to get in a tricky situation, let's put it this way. So data drifts, anomalies, higher accuracy, and finally, especially important cases. So there are some things with which you can get in trouble with law, with regulators, with human groups that will be offended by what your client did. And AI doesn't get offended. Surprise. So that's also very important. And I'll give you some examples. So let's talk about something else other than search. And let's talk about e-com and product offerings. And this is my favorite product offering of all time. Some entrepreneurial guy on AliExpress. AliExpress is a huge Chinese e-com platform that we have as a client. So the guy is selling Spotify Premium for life. That's very entrepreneurial. And if there are some people from Spotify, you need to talk to your legal team and find this guy, because, you know, there's something fishy here. But the problem is that this guy is somewhere in China, and the trouble that will happen will probably happen with the marketplace where he or she is offering their services that are illegal, right? In some countries, hemp is illegal, in some it is not. Like in some, even within EU, there are some regulations about some medical products that could be offered with and without prescription. These things has to be monitored. And once again, there are some compliance issues that are easy to find, and they're obvious, you can filter them automatically. But once your model is unsure, you do need human oversight. And if you're big, and if you're multilingual, and if you're multi-market, these problems pile up. So you have a haystack, needle in a haystack situation. Like, most of the people do good things most of the time, right? Most of the people don't break laws most of the time. Most of the partners on an e-com platform comply with all the regulations on all the markets where they offer their services. And then some of them don't, but you need to find them because they could be very damaging for your business. And the problem is that a lot of these things are not very easy to resolve. Do we have some Italians in the room? Anybody? Okay, if some Italians are watching, I'm sorry, trigger warning. So this is how poster for Doctor Strange looks everywhere in the world. This is how it looks in Italy. Do you know why? Well, because apparently this is devil, and it's not good to show to Italian audience, which Marvel had to comply with. So this is a big example. When you have one poster for the movie for one global campaign, you're good. When you have millions of banners throughout your marketplace offered to humans, you don't want people to get offended, and you need to moderate that, right? So this is the use case that we did with AliExpress. We managed to push down their costs for moderation, like half their cost for moderation, create an ML pipeline for them where we have the algorithm that monitors cases that are potentially non-compliant with local regulations, and then if the if the AI is not sure about it, we do additional human labeling by specially trained humans that know the compliance. And this way, you can basically be sure that you don't violate any regulations, you don't offend your audiences, you have a stable, reliable solution, right? And it's a combination of algorithm and humans. This is what I want to highlight. It's not that AI is replacing humans, it's not that humans take over AI, it's synergy that brings us viable way forward. So that's basically some summary of the project. So we have approximately 20K messages daily, and If you do moderation, this is a moderation with for the comments on the platform. That's, once again, each of you probably was involved in a debate on some social media that was not very pleasant. This is the experience that happens from time to time. And then if you have such thing in your game that you allow users to interact, if you have any form of UGC, basically, there will be, once again, needle in a haystack situation where a small percentage of humans will be, not having their best day. And once again, you monitor this with algorithms, but also we know a lot of stories when somebody didn't say anything bad, but algorithm somehow highlighted what they said, and it's becoming a reputation problem once again, because you don't want to censor people for saying good things, legitimate, logical things too. And here, once again, combining ML and human oversight solves you both sides of the problem. Okay, so let's talk a little bit, let's get a little bit more philosophical in the second part of it, because, we live in a world that, at least online, that I would describe with this photo that I took in Hong Kong. So this is an actual photo, right? And this is how attention economy works, right? You don't notice it first, but what's actually happening is that internet is fighting for your attention. There is the saying, if you don't pay for the product, you're the product. And this is what's happening. I've been talking to a founder of an ad tech startup on my podcast, and he said a crazy thing that I remember till this day. It was 4 years ago. He said, we compete with Netflix for the sleep of our clients. Let it sink. It should sting a little bit, Because people work, and then they want to make a next step in their career, and they come home, and they have a choice between spending some time with their family and going to bed, learning something online, or watching Netflix. And of course, they spend some time with their family because they want to keep their marriage intact and their kids happy and so on. And then when the kids are tucked in, it's a sleep time. And this is where the attention economy kicks in. And this is crazy, but this is exactly what's happening. This is the business model. And there is a beautiful movie, Social Dilemma, on Netflix. I recommend it if you don't want to sleep too much. Watch this movie. It basically explains that human beings should not feel guilty about, spending too much time on YouTube, for example, because there's a huge algorithm trained on millions and millions of examples with the data of all the humans in the world that's only focused to offer you something you will like. So it's not a surprise that you actually like what you're offered. You shouldn't be guilty about it, feeling ashamed or something. The field is uneven, right? So you should, as a human, think about it in a very different way. You should think, okay, this is a tool. This tool is stronger than my, than my noradrenaline, epinephrine, and dopamine systems. So how can I use this tool in a beneficial way? One of the examples that I give to my students, I say, decide to only watch professionally related content on YouTube for a week. You'll be surprised how different your YouTube page is and how much you learn. But control yourself for a week, right? So this is an example what humans can do with these tools, but they should constantly keep remembering about it, right? So the whole talk about ethical AI is so big that even the Pope blessed ethical AI. I don't know what he means under it, but he did that. And there are some crazy examples of how things can get very bad without human perspective. The favorite examples that I also show to my students is this project is called FACE project, started in MIT Media Lab. And these are the results of the accuracy of the recognition of average different faces. And this accuracy was taken, this is 2018. The company's improved since then a lot. But this is a very clear example that your data is not balanced. If your data is not balanced, you introduce the biases you don't want to introduce, right? It's not that the algorithm is racist, it's just the data is unbalanced and nobody thought about it in advance. And these things happen a lot. And on one hand side, AI can help us to debias our decision process because AI is impartial, right? Humans may be impartial, AI is not. But we should be very careful about how we design the systems. We should think forward about it. We should think that the data should be balanced. We should think, okay, well, another example in US at some point, there was a use case when a bank implemented a credit score system, and they found out that women get lower credit scores than men. They're like, okay, that's bad. We don't want to do that. How about we take away the women variable completely from our data? And then they recalculated the model, still women get lower credit scores. Then they're like, okay, what's wrong here? And then they found out that they had another variable that was saying, was the person continuously employed? And it correlated a lot with gender because quite often, not that it correlated with gender, it was actually the variable on which algorithm looked and decided not to give credit. But the thing is that in US, uncontinuous employment for a man means very different things than for a woman. For a woman, it usually means having a child and deciding to spend some more time with the child. For a man, it might mean, rehab and drug relapse or whatever. So it's a very different reason, but it's actually hard to debias those algorithms, and we have to think about these things in advance. And humans can help us detect these biases because we talk about them. We're educating each other about them, right? So. And basically, that's the only way forward, right? We have to establish this feedback loop, similarly to this use case, similar to all the other use cases I showed you. We have to have a feedback loop where we implement AI pipeline, we see where it goes wrong, and we correct that with human feedback, and we do it iteratively, right? ChatGPT is so successful partly because it was trained on the procedure that's called reinforcement learning from human feedback. That's what we are up to. That's what we do in Toloka. That's our mission. We try to change AI with human insight. We try to democratize the access of people to human insight when they implement those technologies. And we think it's very important. So this is the basic stats of our crowdsourcing pool. Like if you take 500,000 Tolokers, we cover 191 country and 186 languages. We have a little bit more males than females. Then we have different ages from 18 to 35 plus. 15% of the audience is 35 plus, and that's actually also very important because if you think about online lingo, for example, then it's very different. So if you want to moderate things, some things that look offensive might look offensive differently for different age groups, for example, and you should take care of that. And then regarding the education, we try to also keep it as broad as possible. Now, I would like to end my talk with one final question. So if you know this test, it's a psychological personality test. Some people question its validity, but a lot of people like to use it. Even some managers and organizations implement it. So do you know anybody who's got this personality? Maybe it's a famous personality. So any guesses who is that? You. Oh, it's you. Cool. Any other ideas? Who's that? Who's on the image? So it's a person who is slightly introverted, towards kind of skewed a little bit towards feeling rather than thinking, is 61% intuitive rather than observant, and is 68% judging rather than prospecting. So, any ideas? Well, we just took ChatGPT and we asked it to take a test, right? So if you implement a chatbot, that's your chatbot. Right? Like, if you implement any other ML pipeline with any other foundational model, you'll have a different character, probably. Do you want this character to talk to your people, to your clients? Are you sure? Maybe you want another one? How do you deal with that? Where do you get this feedback? How do you fine-tune this model to make it different? Does it represent the values of your brand? These are all very important questions, and we need to ask them now, And there's one thing more than bias, and it's a great phrase that was said by Swedish writer Astrid Lindgren. And I want to leave you with that phrase. In one of her books, she says, one of the characters, you can guess who said that, says, "I have never tried that before, so I think I should definitely be able to do that." And that's why humans will lead us to a trustful, reliable AI. That's the main point of the talk that I wanted you to take out. Thank you very much for your attention, and thanks for inviting me. That's very nice.